So in reality, I don't really care what the Tower 300 case was designed to do and what spec is listed. I care what it can do. And in this case, it looks like maybe it will take a Project Zero motherboard. So we're going to answer that question today. Now, if you're not familiar with what Project Zero is, there's this new motherboard feature where they're putting the connectors on the back of the board instead of the front. So think like all your USB connections, your I/O panel connections, power connections included. Main idea behind that is it's supposed to improve the aesthetics of your case, if you like that particular aesthetic, and it's supposed to simplify cable management. Now, in the previous videos that I did for the Tower 300, I had a couple of comments. One of them indicated they were surprised I hadn't mentioned that it would work with the Project Zero motherboards. And in another video, the second video I did, somebody had commented that Thermaltake has said that it doesn't support or work with the Project Zero motherboards. What better way to find out if it's actually going to work than to just do it? Because if you recall back to the Tower 200 case, Thermaltake doesn't show that that supports a micro ATX motherboard either, but it clearly did, at least in most cases. But I'm kind of thinking maybe in this case, Thermaltake didn't specifically design this case to do it, but maybe it'll fit. Now, ASUS also has an advanced BTF feature, which not only puts all of the connectors on the back for the motherboard, but it eliminates all of the power connections to the GPU. Again, I'll leave links in the description below. You can go check those products out. But basically, it puts the power connection for your GPU on the motherboard itself. It's got an extra special connection there. But that brings up the obvious point. You can't just take a Project Zero motherboard or a BTF motherboard from ASUS and slap it in any old regular case. The case specifically has to be designed for these particular motherboards. Now, in the case of the Project Zero boards, MSI has a list of cases that are supported. It's not a big list, and the Tower 300 certainly isn't on it. ASUS, as best I could tell, only is showing their particular case, but those boards should work, in the same cases that MSI is showing. But with me today, I've got the B650M from MSI, which is the AMD platform that they offer. And I'm not really here to talk about the merits of this motherboard. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more about this board or give you a grand tour of it as we go. So let's go ahead and get it opened up and take a look at it. And I think you just want to be careful with the connectors on the back. So we'll open it up. And it is not a light motherboard at all. So on the back of it, of course, you got your power connectors and all your I/O, USB, HD headers and things like that. Now, it does look like you can kind of set it down. It's got a power connector and kind of the SATA connectors on the one side back here. So if you're gentle with it, you can set it down on the bottom. You're just going to want to use caution so you don't bend any of those pins. But overall, I think it's a pretty sharp looking board. And basically, there's no cable connections here on the top other than under the plate here is the M2 connection for your NVMe drive. Now, one thing I can see right off the bat is we're going to have to remove the drive cage in the rear of the Tower 300 in order to get this to work. These power cables are going to come through, and this plate is going to interfere with that. So that's the first obstacle. This has got to come out. You're not going to be able to use it. So over here on the side, you can see just the different cutouts here, and it looks like these will fit this motherboard just fine. So I'm just going to start by kind of setting it up in here and eyeballing. I think we'll have to take this rubber grommet out here. So I think that's where that bottom set of connectors is going to be. Now, this may not work. We may find that it just isn't a good fit, but we're going to get it up here. Take a look. My initial impression is it does look like it will fit. It looks like all of the connectors are lining up perfectly with these cutouts that they've put in here. Now, I mentioned in the previous video where this is going to be a real pain is this back corner over here, because you got the side of the case, and so it's really tight to get back up in here. It's not that you can't get up in here at all, but just to get it up here and then see which pins you need to connect is just really going to be a hassle. In fact, one of the things I thought maybe I would have to do is take this cover off over here on the side and connect those cables prior to me mounting it down, which is going to be kind of a real pain in the butt. So I've been just going through and double checking all the standoffs in the right position. There's nothing unusual about this motherboard or this case. It's just, micro ATX, everything's in the right place. I've been double checking that all of the connectors on the back of the motherboard have an opening here. I was a little worried that maybe if it wasn't fully compatible, something would short out on the case. I'm not detecting that anything is touching. Everything looks to be in good shape. One of the cool things about this, where I thought it was going to be a problem over here on the right side, your left side, I guess, The only two connections I need to connect over here are the HD audio connector and the front panel connector. The Tower 300 does not have, all the little individual connectors, which will make this a lot easier. It's just a single connector. I can plug it in. All of the other connections over here that I thought were going to be a problem, they're just system fan headers, USB connections, USB 2.0 connectors, which I'm not using in this case anyways. All of the USB 3 connectors are down along the bottom, so it's no big deal to get to it. So the only two I've got to worry about are HD audio and the front panel. So I'm just going to slide those through here, and I'm going to connect them before I even put the motherboard up. So I've got my audio cable coming through here, front panel through the bottom one, and then I'm just going to put this motherboard in position. This would be easier if the case were laying down flat or if you had a helper. But for the sake of video, I can get it going. This motherboard does have some standoff zones, so on the back it's kind of marked. It's got some extra painted material there to help you avoid from scratching it. But you can usually get it lined up perfectly the first time, not have to mess about with it too much. All right, so I take that back. I do need to plug in one of the USB ports for my USB hub, and I'm basically can look back in here, and it's kind of tight to get in here, but I know that these two are my USB connectors right here, and this is a keyed connection, so I can just maybe pre-line it up. I know that the missing pin is on the top here, so I'm just going to go ahead and select one of those. So I'm just going to set that cable back in, make sure it's on pretty good like that, and then just reach up in there and tuck it in nice and gentle. That looks connected. I'm just going to check it on the other side here, make sure I'm fully on, because you can get a good view of it from the other side as well. So that is fully on all the pins. I'm not missing anything. That's way easier than what I thought that was going to be. So you can see how that looks back there. All right, so I've got my 8 screws in there, and I've got my 2 initial cables connected, and I'll have to tidy that up here in just a minute. I will be able to probably remove all my extensions here because we're not going to be able to see those, so we won't care about that. So that'll help not have so many cables in the system. On this particular setup, I will still need my GPU cable. But overall, I don't see any issues with using Project Zero on the Tower 300 case. But even over here on the left-hand side where I thought these connectors were going to be a problem, even though I don't need them all, if you needed those, they actually protrude out enough. They don't come through the back of the case, but they're right there. Really wouldn't be that big a deal to just get your connectors in there as long as you were careful knowing where you were lined up, especially the fan connectors. Those are keyed. It's hard to do those wrong. Even the USB connectors, those are keyed with one pin missing, so it's hard to mess those up. But let's get this system fully built, up and running, and we'll come back and check it out. So I've got the Project Zero motherboard installed in this Tower 300 case, and overall I can report that everything seems to be working just fine. Now, all I've done with it at this point is install Windows, update the BIOS, update all the drivers. I've installed Cinebench and ran through a couple of benchmark tests, just push it a little bit for an hour or two. I've had no issues with this setup whatsoever. It seems to work just fine. You do need to be careful and pay attention to which connector you're going on to, and maybe look around the front just to ensure that you have it on the right pins, because you can't see it really well, but you can see it good enough to get back in there and tuck it in. For a one-time build, it's really not going to be that much of a problem. You just take your time. Now, there were a couple of little issues that I ran into, and I want to point those out to you. The first one is I did have 220 millimeter fans running back here. Now, because the power connector comes straight out the back, it interferes with this bottom fan here, so I ended up having to remove it. Now, a while back, I reviewed one of these 90-degree power connectors, and so I went and pulled this out of the closet and thought maybe this will help. But what this does is it angles it up. So up this way instead of going down. There's no real practical way to do that. So inevitably the only way forward was to go ahead and pull this fan. Now there may be some other 90-degree connectors out there, some other solutions that might enable you to keep this bottom fan, but it was just a no-go for me. I had to pull it out of there. There wasn't any way around that. As I mentioned earlier, you are going to have to pull that fan cage out of there. I don't see any way around that either. In fact, there is no way. I guess the only way to do it would be to mod the cage itself. You'd have to maybe cut through it to get those connectors through there, but I wouldn't recommend you go doing that. But you also do need to remove this rubber grommet from that bottom hole. Not a big deal. It doesn't seem to really change the look of it that much. It doesn't bother me at all. So in conclusion, yes, the Project Zero B650 motherboard by MSI will fit in the Tower 300 case. I don't see any interference with any of the connections on the backside at all. Everything seems to be running fine. As best I can tell, there's no interference with the pins. I can't foresee any problems with this installation. However, let me know in the comments below if you have some information or you see something that I don't that would be a cause for concern for doing this. So because it's not on the supported list for this motherboard, I would say just do this at your own risk. Worked fine for me. I don't have any problems continuing to run it like this. In fact, I'm going to run this PC for a while with it like this, and I'll report back if I have any issues with it. Do you like the look of the Project Zero motherboards? Now, I'll say I probably like it a little bit more than I thought I was going to. Not that I was going to hate it or anything like that. I don't actually mind the cables coming off the board. That's actually part of the aesthetic for me, if it's done well, right? You know, sometimes even if it's done bad, it kind of still looks cool because it's kind of just a machine. So anyways, you're removing all of that and just kind of cleaning it up. But I think overall it looks really cool. This particular board, you know, it's got, you know, the steel plates on there. I think it's just got a cool look to it overall. Now, installing this in a normal supported case, I think it's going to help with cable management in most cases. With the Tower 300 here, it does in some ways make cable management a little bit easier. But I can see in some situations it's not always a great benefit on the cable management front. It really just kind of depends on what components, what devices you're connecting up, and you know, kind of what your case looks like. But overall, specific to the Tower 300, I think it looks great personally. The cable management in the back, you know, it was easy to do, much easier than I expected it was going to be. And so I've really had a lot of fun doing this and checking it out. And that's kind of the fun of building PCs, right? Is just checking out all the new stuff. There's 1,000 ways to do everything, and you kind of get to pick and choose which way you want to do it. So anyways, this is just one more option. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Project Zero. Are you interested in seeing more of that? Do you like that? Or do you prefer the old traditional connectors coming off of the front? I can really go either way. I think it looks pretty good. Let me know what you think about this motherboard in this specific case. And please, if you see something that I don't or some concern, put it in the comments below. I'd really like to know. And you know, I'll even follow up this video with another one if necessary. But anyways, this is just really intended to be informational for you. If you were wondering if this board would fit, because I got a couple of comments in both directions. Yes, it does fit. Yes, it seems to work just fine. I don't see any problems with it. So anyways, I've had a lot of fun working with it and checking it out. I'm definitely going to continue doing some Project Zero work. Might try to find another case and check it out and see how that compares to the Tower 300. But I'm going to work with this PC for a while because I think it looks pretty cool. It's been a lot of fun to play with. If you haven't checked out the other Tower 300 videos, go do so. It's a pretty cool looking little case. It's been a lot of fun to work with, and I think it looks great. But that is going to do it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.